First thing was I found nobody else had done it. And that surprised me really, because I was 14 or 15 when he died. And there was a general air of adulation around. But I had a very cynical but brilliant history master at the time who told us, trying to make us think for ourselves, that Churchill was just a romantic old windbag. And I took that verdict home and delivered it to my parents and grandmother. And I can still remember my grandmother's face, her jaw dropping and literally going pale. And she decided I needed re-education, and she started buying me the official biography as soon as it came out. And for the first 2 volumes, there's quite a lot about his money in it and money problems, because those volumes were written by Randolph Churchill, his son, who was always trying to borrow money off him and knew how difficult it was. But then Randolph died in 1968 after writing only 2 volumes, and a great historian called Martin Gilbert took over. But he was really a political biographer, and by the time he was covering, Churchill was centre stage in public life. So he downplayed the money side, and I don't think he understood it anyway, really. So strangely, things like Churchill losing huge amounts of money in the 1929 crash in Wall Street don't feature at all in the official biography, and yet they clearly did colour the 1930s and his political career. I think the most important thing that I found and used were his bank statements, which are nearly all in his archive from 1907 onwards, really till he died. And those that aren't, quite a few of the gaps I managed to plug through his bank, Lloyd's Bank, which Lady Soames kindly allowed me to use. And the great thing about bank statements is they don't lie. It's a bit like cash flow statements of companies. The truth is there. So although he can write to his wife and say, darling, I didn't lose much at the casino last night, I could see from his drawings at the casino, sometimes several times a night, what he had lost. The other one perhaps worth mentioning is a file I found very late in my research in the National Archives, which was the Inland Revenue's internal correspondence about dealing with Churchill, because he was a huge tax avoider. He came up with so many schemes from the 1920s onwards, really, for 40 years. And I found this priceless file of the Inland Revenue, which was only declassified in 2004. And it had all the senior people's comments to each other about how outrageous this was, but there was nothing much they could do about it. They felt he was so powerful a man. Acquiesce, the chairman said. They were very hopeful, but I only approached them towards the end of my research, really, because I didn't want to have any bunny holes closed off. And they sold his papers, his private papers, to the country in 1994 for a lot of money. So I used those. And I think after I'd been researching for 3 or 4 years, that the director of the Archive Centre said to them, this guy's serious. So, and then anyway, they were very helpful, and as I say, Lady Soames allowed me to access to some of the missing bank statements. And I think the rest of the family took their cue from that. It's usually difficult these days to find a publisher as a first-time author. But I was lucky. I got a very good agent, Andrew Loney, who sells more biographies than almost anybody else in the world, I think. And he was convinced, he understood the project very quickly. And I think what he understood is that money can be a route into the human being, into the person. And I was very pleased when the editor of my publishers said to me after finishing his editing, he said, thank you for making Churchill so human for the first time. And I thought, well, that's all right for a financial book to make him feel human.